"You don't need that $7,500, Denise said in the middle of our kitchen, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. She grabbed the little plastic box with the silver number 18 candles I bought from the discount aisle and dropped it straight into the trash. "Brandon needs it more. Cancel your birthday." I stood there with the paper plates and the $2 pizza, watching the 9s and 8s on the oven clock blink toward midnight. I thought I had misheard her. I thought maybe it was one of her sharp jokes that left bruises you could not see. But her voice was clear and clipped, the kind she saved for waiters and for me. Brandon leaned against the fridge, chewing a slice from his own pizza box, the one she bought only for him. "If you hate it, here, just leave." Michael looked up from his phone long enough to whisper his favorite line. "Don't make a fuss. That was the rule of this house." Silence was survival. Silence was obedience. Silence was love, or at least their version of it. Chloe had texted me from the driveway. "I am outside. I will bring the cake. Should I knock?" I never answered. Denise called the bakery and canceled the order in front of me. Her voice suddenly sweet when she spoke to strangers. My daughter decided not to celebrate, refund the deposit, and move the $200 back to checking. Actually transfer it to the gas card. Brandon is driving to Columbus this weekend. He needs fuel. She hung up and stared at me like she had just donated an organ. "You should be grateful. $7,500 is nothing in real life. College is expensive. And let's be honest, you are not ready." Brandon laughed and tapped his phone against his palm. "Community college, right? Good luck." Every word landed like a stone. I felt my cheeks burn, the kind of heat that comes before tears, but I refused to blink. I opened my banking app, pretending to check a homework alert, and took a silent photo of the pending withdrawal she made earlier that week. $7,500. Description for household needs. I scrolled to the custodial agreement I had read 100 times. At midnight on my 18th birthday, full control transferred to me. One tap, one rule, stored and ready. I set the transfer automation days ago, hidden under a boring label called Textbook Fund. No one cared about my textbooks. Michael walked out of the room, pretending the sports game on TV demanded his full attention. Denise returned to the sink, clattering dishes louder than necessary. Brandon opened the fridge, grabbed a soda, and said again, "If you hate it here, just leave." The house felt small, tight, like every wall leaned inward. Snow pressed against the window. The cheap paper happy birthday banner I hung an hour earlier drooped at the corners. I looked at the trash can. The candles rested on top of the pizza crusts. My birthday had been reduced to garbage. I felt something move inside me, not break, but click, like a lock sliding open. I set my phone against the counter and opened the app again. Under Cards and Access, I removed Denise as an authorized user. A simple confirmation, "Are you sure?" "Yes." Done. Her gas card would be declined the next time she tried to fill the tank. Not dramatic, not loud, just a quiet correction. It was almost midnight. I could hear Brandon's video game from the living room. Gunfire, laughter, curses, the usual soundtrack of the Lane family. I checked the transfer rule. At exactly 12 a.m., every dollar would move into my new high-yield savings account, the one I opened at the credit union with my grandmother's passbook. Nana Ruth had written, "Use this to build something for yourself. Do not let them shrink you." I used to think that was poetic. Tonight, it felt like a command. 11:59, the last minute of childhood that never felt like mine. I stared at the little blue circle on my screen. Processing rules. Brandon yelled at the TV. Denise complained that the internet was slow. Michael told them both to keep it down. The oven clock blinked. 11:59 shifted. 12:00. The transfer notification appeared like a small spark in a dark room. Funds moved successfully. I did not smile. I did not speak. I simply whispered to myself, "I am 18. I turned off the kitchen light and walked toward the stairs. The money had left their control before I had even packed a bag. My birthday was canceled, but my freedom had been delivered right on time. If you have ever lived through toxic family money control comment, still here. Quiet justice is coming. The morning after the birthday that never happened, the world outside our red brick house in Westerville, Ohio, looked peaceful. A thin layer of snow covered the yard soft and clean, while inside everything felt sharp and uneven. Our street was quiet chimney smoke drifting up into the pale winter sky, and somewhere down the block a dog barked. None of that matched the tension in our living room where the television blared a video game Brandon played every morning. I sat at the dining table with my laptop open and the floral tin box beside it pretending to study for finals, while my mind replayed the scene from the night before. My 18th birthday was supposed to be a beginning, but in this house it had been treated like an inconvenience, another chance to remind me of my place. The imbalance had started long before last night. It ran through every year of my life, small and constant, like a drip that eventually floods a room. I remembered being 10 years old and bringing home a perfect report card. I handed it to Denise, eager for a scrap of pride, but she did not even look up from her phone. Later that evening, our neighbor praised me at the mailbox, saying I must be very smart. Denise heard and responded without smiling. Please do not make a big deal. It hurts Brandon's feelings. He was 12 then, with grades that had never climbed beyond average, but in this house, his feelings weighed more than my accomplishments. When I was 14, I entered a coding contest at school and won first place. My teacher emailed home to congratulate me. Denise replied thank you and asked if it meant I would need new supplies that would cost money. She never asked what I built or how I won. Silence was her way of shrinking me. Silence told me I was always a guest in her world, never equal, never truly welcome. After Nana Ruth passed, I inherited $3,000 through a custodial account that my father opened with the credit union. Denise called it a family resource. She referred to it as a safety net for unexpected expenses. I understood what that meant. Unexpected expenses usually came from Brandon. Gas fraternity fees, new tires, another video game console, anything he wanted could become a family need. So I decided to build my own protection. I took a job at a neighborhood cafe during sophomore year, working weekends and some evenings. People tipped well, and I learned quickly. By the end of 2 years, I had saved $3,200. During senior year, I began tutoring a freshman who struggled with geometry. He paid weekly. $1,300 later, my fund reached $7,500. It was the only thing that belonged to me in a house where everything else was borrowed. I kept the money quiet. I kept everything quiet. The floral tin box sat under a loose floorboard beneath my bed. Inside, the passbook showed every deposit and every penny earned through my own work. I also kept a small stack of printouts, copies of emails, and one business card from Donna Pierce, branch manager at Buckeye Community Credit Union. She was the one who helped me turn the custodial account into a future I could control the moment I turned 18. Donna explained that as long as I was a minor, Denise could monitor activity. She could not legally spend the money without a documented need, but loopholes existed everywhere, and Denise loved loopholes. Last summer, she took $600 from the account. Grocery emergency, she said. The problem was easy to understand. The grocery bill that month was less than $300. The other $300 went somewhere else. I found the proof in the online statement. A transaction labeled household goods appeared the same day Brandon took a small road trip with his friends. I confronted no one. I simply took a screenshot, printed the image, and added it to my folder. That was the day the first seed of rebellion took root. Story Financial became my secret plan. I learned to watch patterns. Brandon asked for things. Denise gave them. When money was short, she dipped into mine. If I had pointed it out, she would have said I was dramatic. She would have said I should be grateful she allowed me to live in her home. She had said that before. You have a roof. You have food. Be thankful. Gratitude in her dictionary meant silence. Gratitude meant letting others take what they wanted. So I studied, and I saved, and I built an exit, without ever saying it aloud. I set a fraud alert that would send a notification to my phone every time someone attempted to move money. Not a block, just a quiet alarm. I wanted to know exactly when the next attempt came, and I knew it would come. The night before my birthday at 11:58 p.m., the alert buzzed. Attempted transfer marked pending. 2 minutes before legal control shifted. Denise had tried to take what she believed would always be hers. The transfer rules I created stopped it. The next morning, she acted as if nothing happened. She poured coffee, scrolled her phone, and lectured Brandon about cleaning the crumbs he left on the couch. Michael left early for work. Denise drove Brandon to the college gym and told me to heat leftovers for lunch. It was an ordinary morning in a house that pretended nothing was wrong. The injustice was quiet, but it was everywhere. Brandon had a used Honda his mother financed for him. He complained about it constantly. Too old, too slow, too small. I took the city bus to school and walked home in winter storms. When I got accepted to Ohio State and received partial scholarship letters, Denise told me community college would be wiser, less debt, more practical. Brandon was failing his freshman math class at a state school, and still she believed he was destined for greatness. I was the responsible one. I was the planner. I always made things work, and she used that against me. Dependability became a leash around my neck, but something changed the moment the clock struck midnight. I knew justice would not arrive in storms. Justice would come in small and steady moves. Justice would come through knowledge. They took my birthday. They took my voice. They took my money. Soon they would lose access to all of it. If your family drama was about money-type receipts. The humiliation did not end with the candles in the trash. The morning after, the kitchen smelled of burnt toast and stale arguments. Denise stood by the counter with her arms crossed while Brandon lounged in a chair tapping his fork against an empty cereal bowl. The winter light slid through the window and made everything look sharper, colder, more brittle. Chloe knocked on the door at 9, holding a small box wrapped in blue paper. I heard her voice through the glass. I brought something for Avery, just a little cake. Denise marched to the door before I could move. She opened it a few inches and barely stepped outside. Her tone was sugary at first. "Thank you, but Avery is busy today. Brandon has a lot on his mind and needs a quiet house. He is stressed." Chloe tried to hand the box over anyway. Denise pushed the door closed while saying, "Have a good day," and when the wood clicked shut, she tossed the cake in the trash beside the candles. Brandon smirked, enjoying every second. "You should stop inviting people into our family issues," he said. "It makes you look desperate." The humiliation burned in my throat. I reached for the box in the trash, but Denise snapped, "Leave it. We do not need more junk in this house. You are ungrateful. $7,500 is nothing. You act like you earned it." The words struck something deep in me. I had earned it. Every hour behind the cafe register, every late-night tutoring session, every snow-covered walk to the bus, all of it had paid for that number. But in her eyes, nothing that belonged to me mattered, unless it was useful to Brandon. He wandered to the fridge and pulled out orange juice. "Community college will probably refund your deposit," he said around a mouthful of cereal. "Not that they care who goes there. You should be grateful anyone would take you." The kitchen walls seemed to shrink inward. Denise poured coffee, stirring it hard enough for the spoon to scrape metal. Her eyes never lifted from her mug. "You make everything dramatic. Real life is hard. $7,500 will not take you far. Brandon needs gas and books and his parking pass. You are young. You have time to figure yourself out. He needs help now." She said it like a mathematical fact, like fairness was irrelevant. She always chose the path where Brandon won and I disappeared. I asked her quietly, "Did you really try to move the money before midnight?" Her face tightened. She set down her mug and reached for her purse. "I do not have to answer to you. Your father and I are meeting with the bank today, 8:30 sharp. We will sort out what is best." She zipped the purse and added before you were even awake. My heart pounded once, twice. So that was her plan. She thought if she arrived at the credit union early, she could convince someone to hand over what was never hers. She had done this before, in smaller ways, transferring money marked as household goods, taking my savings for what she called emergencies. Now she wanted everything. She walked to the hallway mirror and fixed her lipstick. I should not have to teach you about gratitude at 18. You are lucky we supported you all these years. I wanted to tell her I paid for most of my own things. I wanted to tell her I had receipts, but I stayed silent. Silence could be used too. Brandon left his bowl on the table and grabbed his keys. His Honda waited in the driveway, tires dusted with snow. Denise followed him outside, lecturing about icy roads and oil changes. When the door shut, the house fell quiet. Michael appeared from the bedroom holding his work bag. He avoided eye contact the way he always did when things got uncomfortable. He muttered something about traffic and left with his coat half unbuttoned. I stood alone in the kitchen with the trash can between me and the celebration I never had. The small blue cake box rested on top of coffee grounds and eggshells. I picked it up anyway and set it gently on the counter. I looked through the living room window and watched the Honda slide down the street. The car glinted in the morning light, smooth and clean. I thought about how many times I had waited in the cold for the bus breath fogging the air while Brandon drove past laughing with his music turned up. It was family betrayal in 1,000 small daily acts. I turned on my laptop and opened the banking app. Every withdrawal, every deposit, every attempted transfer had a timestamp. I printed the custodial agreement. I printed the pending transfer from 11:58 the night before. I printed the bakery refund that Denise had ordered during my birthday. I printed screenshots of her messages about gas money. When the pages were stacked, I laid them on the table in neat rows, each sheet a quiet witness. I gathered them into a folder labeled Receipts. Denise believed nothing could touch her if she stayed loud, if she stayed confident, if she kept control of the narrative. But financial paperwork did not care about attitude. It did not care about tone. It only cared about the truth. Next came the small revenge. When I helped Michael set up online payments months earlier, I learned the passwords. I saw which accounts belonged to him and which belonged to Denise. Her internet bill was enrolled in autopay using his card. I removed the setting with a few taps. It would not cause damage, not truly, but the missing payment would hit her pride. A tiny late fee, a small mark on her perfect record. That was enough. No one would trace it to me. It would just look like a minor glitch until the bank notice arrived. After that, I took photos of the trashed candles and the cake that never fit on our table. I printed those too. When the folder closed, it made a soft sound like a breath. I slipped it into my backpack. The humiliation no longer stayed in the kitchen. It had become documentation, proof, a story that could not be rewritten later. I poured a cup of water and watched the snow melt on the windowsill. I did not cry. Every insult from last night pressed into a quiet promise inside me. I would not stay here much longer. I would not let them take what I built, and I would not allow history to vanish as if it never existed. Ever felt family conflict over your birthday? Comment me. The loops of control in that house did not come all at once. They came slowly like tiny hands tightening a rope that you pretend not to feel. After Chloe's cake went into the trash life inside, those walls slipped back into its familiar rhythm of small cuts, delivered with a smile. Denise returned from the bank later that morning, annoyed but not defeated. She hung her coat stomped snow from her boots and announced that the teller was unhelpful and inexperienced. She did not mention what she learned, but the tightness in her jaw told me she had been reminded of the custodial rule. At 18, the account was mine. She would never admit it out loud. Instead, she looked at me and said, "You should start contributing more around here. Since you insist on keeping your money, you can pay for groceries this week." It was a familiar script. Last winter, she took a $50 gift card my aunt mailed as a graduation present. "A household needs it more," she said. When I questioned her, she waved the card in front of my face and asked if I planned to eat without helping. So I gave up the argument and handed it over. Another time, she demanded part of my tutoring money for utilities. No receipt, no dinner. Her phrase echoed through my mind so often that I started taking pictures of everything I purchased. Not to prove her wrong, but to remind myself I was not crazy. In that house, gaslighting came disguised as parenting. Brandon strutted in one afternoon wearing a new campus sweatshirt and carrying a bag of takeout. His smile was wide and careless. "Mom paid my fraternity fee," he said. "I told you things work out for me." He leaned close and whispered, "Poor is a choice." His breath smelled like fried chicken and arrogance. I folded laundry and did not respond. Silence worked better than any argument. Silence made them nervous. They needed reactions to feel powerful. When I stayed calm, they lost grip. That evening, I sat at the dining table with my laptop open to a blank document. Snow tapped softly on the window. My backpack rested at my feet with the folder labeled Receipts tucked inside. The house smelled like detergent and reheated leftovers. Denise walked in holding a stack of envelopes. Bills, letters, bank statements. She sorted through them until she found the one from Buckeye Community Credit Union. She tore it open and read it while pretending not to watch me. Her eyebrows pinched together. She muttered something under her breath and tossed the letter in a drawer. She must have realized the account was now locked to her. Authorization access ended at 18. Authorized user did not mean owner. It was a simple rule easy to understand, especially for anyone over 50. She could not take money from an account she did not own. She could not change a login she did not control. And she could not admit defeat. Instead, she looked at me and said, "We are still talking about what to do with your fund. A house works together. Do not forget that." I nodded and kept typing nothing. She hated silence more than she hated bills. Around 10 that night, Brandon came home smelling of gasoline and cheap cologne. He tossed his keys on the counter and bragged loudly about his day. The fraternity was planning a spring break trip. Everyone was paying deposits, and his mother said she might help. He glanced at me with a crooked grin. "Maybe you can tutor a few dozen kids and join us. Or maybe ask the college to sponsor your bus ticket." Laughter followed him down the hall. I clicked my phone open and checked the security alerts. At 11:58 the night before, 2 minutes before my birthday, another attempted transfer had triggered. Pending. Failed. That meant she had tried again right before the ownership changed. Her desperation had timing. She wanted the money just before it became mine. She believed I would never know. But the fraud alert left a trail. The banking app recorded every attempt like footprints in snow. The proof was there whether she wanted to see it or not. That gave me an idea. Earlier in the year, Michael asked me to help set up a shared email the family used for bills and school alerts. He wrote down the password on a sticky note and left it taped under the keyboard. Denise used that same login for bank notifications. I opened the account and changed the password. The new version was long and random, impossible to guess. There was no revenge in shouting, but there was quiet power in cutting her access. She could no longer monitor my account. She could no longer watch for mistakes or opportunities. The screen went blank and calm. I shut the laptop and leaned back in my chair. The house hummed with the familiar noise of appliances. Somewhere in the hallway, Brandon slammed a door. Denise turned on the dishwasher and complained about detergent prices. Everything was normal. Everything was broken. Days passed, each one repeating the same rhythm of small humiliations. Denise asked if I would contribute to the electric bill. Brandon left cereal bowls in the sink and announced he was going to a concert his mother promised to fund. Michael stayed out of it, too tired or too afraid to speak. I watched. I waited. I learned. Every time Denise lectured me on responsibility, she used my effort to fix Brandon's failures. Every time she called me ungrateful, she used gratitude to take what was not hers. She had spent years turning my silence into permission. But silence can change purpose. Silence can become strategy. I made copies of every bank statement and tucked them into the folder. I added the screenshots of attempted transfers. I printed the custodial rule with the highlight on the line that stated full control returns to beneficiary at age 18. The math made sense. The law made sense. and soon the consequences would make sense too. One evening, Brandon came home bragging that his fraternity coordinator accepted his deposit. He said things always fall into place for people who are destined to win. Then he gestured at me and said some people stay small. It was meant to hurt. It used to work. Now it simply confirmed what I already knew. I was leaving. I checked my bag again. Passbook, receipts, Chloe's spare house key, my acceptance letter. Everything important was ready. Justice would not arrive with shouting or dramatic scenes. It would arrive in paperwork and procedures. If you ever wished for justice, without shouting, say silent. The breaking point did not arrive with shouting or slammed doors. It came quietly on a Tuesday night when the snow kept falling and the house felt too small for all the things no one said. Michael had gone to bed early. Brandon was out with friends. I sat at the kitchen table, finishing an essay, the only sound the hum of the refrigerator. Denise paced through the living room with her phone pressed to her ear, speaking in that bragging voice she used whenever she wanted to impress someone. She talked about the bank trip, about responsibility, about raising children who knew their place. Then she said the words that froze my breath in my throat. I moved her money. She will not even know. She laughed a sharp sound that cut across the room. Her friend must have asked something because she added, "She thinks she is smarter than everyone, but she is still a child. The 60-second bank clerk will hand everything over once I explain the situation. It is family money anyway." I stared at the laptop screen without seeing a single word. My fingers hovered over the keys, numb and heavy. I wanted to believe she was bluffing. I wanted to believe she had learned the rules the last time the teller corrected her. But Denise was not the type to accept limits. She was the type to force doors open and call it parenting. My heart beat so loudly I felt it in my fingertips. The humiliation of the birthday, the trashed cake, the snide comments about community college, they all collided in my chest. In that moment, the house did not feel like a home. It felt like a trap. I closed my laptop and listened. Denise lowered her voice, but I still heard enough. If she tries to argue, I will remind her who fed her for 18 years. I will remind her she owes us. There it was. The truth behind every lecture, every guilt trip, every time she used my silence as permission. She believed she owned me. She believed she owned my effort, my money, my future. A memory flashed so clearly, it felt like someone whispered into my ear. Nana Ruth sitting on her porch in the summer, her hands folded in her lap, telling me, "Keep your receipts. Respect is earned." She was the only person who ever said that to me. Respect is earned, not demanded, not stolen, not guilted out of someone on a cold morning after throwing their birthday in the trash. I went to my room and opened the floral tin box. The passbook lay on top, the pages worn at the corners from being held too often. Beneath it was the folder of receipts. Under that, tucked behind a stack of old letters, I found something I had forgotten was there, a folded custodian authorization form from years ago. I had printed it to ask questions at the bank, but never thrown it away. The form clearly stated that the custodian arrangement ended once the beneficiary turned 18. Legally, Denise could not take anything. She could ask, she could shout, she could threaten, but she could not take. I held the paper and felt the last thread of fear loosen. She believed she still had control because she always had control, but the law had already moved past her. Midnight made it final. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the closed door. The hallway was dark. The whole house was quiet. It was the right moment to decide who I wanted to be, stay and keep shrinking, or walk out and finally breathe. My phone rested in my hand. I unlocked it and opened the email account Michael used for bills. Instead of changing the password again, I changed the security questions. The family used them for bank alerts and utility access. Denise always bragged that she remembered answers better than Michael. Now she would not. The new questions were random details only I knew. Favorite book when I was 11. Name of the street my childhood friend lived on. Even if she tried to reset the password, she would not get past the questions. A tiny move, a quiet shift. If she tried to force the bank again, she would hit a wall she did not see coming. I plugged in my phone and set an alarm for midnight. Not 12 on the dot, but a little after. 0:20. Enough time for the transfer to finish processing, enough time to pack without waking anyone. I folded clothes, rolled them into a small suitcase, and tucked the folder of receipts between sweaters. I added the passbook, my acceptance letter, and the printed screenshot of the attempted transfer. I zipped the suitcase and set it upright against the wall. The room felt unfamiliar in that moment. Every photo on the desk, every book on the shelf, every memory stored in drawers, all of it belonged to a life that ended quietly when Denise whispered, "I moved her money. She will not even know." I opened the Uber app and typed Buckeye Community Credit Union. A driver was available in 12 minutes. I hesitated only once. Leaving meant giving up the lie that things would ever get better here. Leaving meant accepting that family could betray you and still sleep soundly at night. Leaving meant choosing my own dignity over their approval. But staying meant handing them the rest of my life. The choice was not difficult. At 0:19, I took my coat from the closet. The zipper stuck, and for a moment I wondered if I should wake Michael, tell him everything, ask him why he never stopped any of it. But he would only whisper his usual line, "Do not make a fuss. Do not stir the water." Peace mattered to him more than justice, and silence was something I no longer planned to give. I slid my phone into my pocket, grabbed my suitcase, and stepped into the hallway. The floor creaked, but no doors opened. The world outside was still coated in snow. Streetlights glowed orange through the dark. An Uber icon moved slowly toward our block. I looked back once at the house. The windows were dark. The walls were quiet. The family who claimed I was ungrateful would wake to a different truth. I locked the door behind me with gentle fingers. Snow crunched beneath my boots as I walked to the curb. The air stung my cheeks. When the car pulled up, I opened the door without hesitation. "Buckeye Community Credit Union," I said. The driver nodded. The city rolled past quiet and asleep. I felt something in my chest unclench. The rope of control loosened. The tunnel was still dark, but there was air at last. If you needed emotional resilience to walk away, comment enough. Midnight had a strange stillness to it, a kind of soft silence that made every small sound feel louder. I sat in the back seat of the Uber watching streetlights slide past like slow blinking eyes. When the car reached Buckeye Community Credit Union, the building was dark except for a single security lamp near the ATM. I stepped out, suitcase in hand, breath turning white in the cold air. I used the night drop box to deliver the paperwork Donna had helped me prepare weeks earlier. Then I opened my banking app and watched the last step unfold. The transfer rules showed processing. I switched from my custodial account to my new adult checking account. The balance appeared clean and whole, a quiet victory with no applause. My fingers moved fast, almost calm as I closed Denise out of every access point. Under Cards and Access, I removed her name completely. Under Authorized Users, I disabled the card they used for gas. Under Security, I enabled 2-factor authentication so no one could enter without my approval. Then I opened the student portal for Ohio State and activated Privacy Lock. It sealed my address, phone number, and account information from outside users. Anyone who wanted to change something would have to go through me. It was a minute past midnight when everything became final. I whispered to myself, "It is done." For a moment, I felt the weight of the past 18 years pressing on my shoulders. The humiliations, the stolen birthday, the endless favors disguised as responsibility, all of it sank into quiet stillness. The driver waited while I stood there with my coat pulled tight around me. I could have gone straight to campus, but there was one more thing to do. I needed closure. Not the kind people speak loudly about, the silent kind that lets you breathe again. We drove back to the house. Snowflakes drifted sideways in the wind, and the porch light glowed yellow. The driveway was empty. Brandon had not returned yet. Michael slept. Only Denise stayed awake. I knew it before I reached the door. The curtain in the living room shifted like someone had been watching. I opened the door and stepped inside. The hallway was dim. Denise stood near the entry table with her phone in her hand and her expression sharp as broken glass. "Where were you?" she demanded. She tried to keep her voice low, but anger leaked through every syllable. I rolled my suitcase toward the bottom of the stairs. I went to the bank. Her eyes widened. "You did what?" I met her stare without blinking. "It is midnight. I am 18. The words dropped between us like stones into deep water. She stepped forward, blocking the stairs with her body. "You cannot move that money. It belongs to this family." I shook my head. "It belongs to me." The custodian agreement ended at midnight. She sputtered with disbelief. "You are lying. You do not understand these things. You are a child." But there was fear behind her words, a tremble she tried to hide. I opened the zipper of my backpack and pulled out a single white envelope. It was blank, no address, no name. I set it on the table where she could see it. "You said if I hated it here, I should leave. You were right. I will." She snatched the envelope and tore it open, expecting money or documents she could use. Inside was nothing, just empty paper. Her confusion turned to anger. "What is this?" I met her eyes. A reminder. "You think I would leave evidence behind for you to twist?" She moved toward me like she wanted to grab the suitcase. "You owe us for raising you. You owe us for shelter and food and school." My voice stayed steady. "I owe you nothing. My grandmother gave me that money. I earned the rest. You tried to take it. You tried to control it. But it is mine." I did not scream. I did not cry. I just stood there with the quiet knowledge that the law had already sided with me. She pointed at the staircase. "You cannot go to your room. Your father will talk to you in the morning." I zipped the backpack shut. "I will not be here in the morning." A long silence followed. She realized I was serious. Her face paled in the hallway light. "You cannot just leave. How will you pay for anything? Do you think the world is waiting to rescue you?" I thought of every night I spent working in the cafe, every morning waiting for the bus while Brandon drove past, every hour I sat in that house shrinking myself to survive. I do not need the world to rescue me. I need it to stop trying to cage me. She backed away, stunned by the calm in my voice. I walked to the front door and paused just long enough to open my phone again. In the contact list under emergency for Michael's phone, I saw her number listed next to mine. Months earlier, I helped him set it up. Now I removed her number and left only mine. It would look like a glitch or a reset. But in the morning, if she tried to shatter into his authority and push her way back into my accounts, it would not work. The bank would confirm that only I could make decisions. She reached for my arm, but I stepped back. "Do not touch me." A tremble passed through her hand. She had always been so sure of her power. Now it slipped like water through a cracked cup. When I opened the door, the cold night air rushed inside. She stood frozen, wanting to stop me, but not knowing how. I lifted the suitcase, swung my backpack over one shoulder, and looked at her one last time. "You threw away my cake. You threw away my birthday. You will not throw away my life." With that, I stepped outside and closed the door. Snow crunched beneath my boots as I walked toward the street. The Uber driver waited with the engine running. I put my suitcase in the back and settled into the seat. For the first time in years, I felt the quiet of my own choice. The folder labeled receipts lay beside me. Proof of everything. I did not need to scream. I only needed to leave. The car pulled away from the curb and the house grew smaller in the rear window until it disappeared behind drifting snow. Believe in dignity over money. Type dignity. Morning light looked different when I was free. It had a softer edge, a cleaner air to it, like the day itself was choosing sides. I stood across the parking lot of Buckeye Community Credit Union, watching Denise and Michael rush through the glass doors. They had not slept. I could tell by the frantic way Denise clutched her purse to her chest and how Michael walked 3 steps behind her, with his shoulders tense, like someone expecting impact. A part of me once would have felt pity. That part no longer existed. I had an appointment with Donna Pierce at 9. It was 8:47. I waited. Inside the bank lobby, Denise marched straight past the line and slammed her palm on the counter. The teller, a young man with a neat haircut, blinked up at her. She demanded to see the manager. She did not lower her voice. Customers turned, chairs stilled. The teller gestured toward the glass office in back, where Donna sat behind a desk piled with paperwork. Donna had salt and pepper hair, a voice like warm steel, and the unmistakable air of someone who had dealt with every kind of entitled customer. Denise stormed inside with Michael trailing after her. He muttered, "Please calm down," but his words disappeared under her tirade. I walked toward the doors and waited just inside where I could see everything but not be seen. Denise threw down her driver's license, her phone, and a scribbled paper listing my birth date. She declared that she needed to access her daughter's account and withdraw $7,500 before I could waste it. Donna gave one of those slow blinks that usually precedes a verbal knockout. "Ma'am, custodial accounts convert to full ownership at 18. Your daughter is legally the owner. You are not on the account." Denise's voice cracked. "That money belongs to our family. She is just a child. She cannot be trusted with that kind of money." Donna folded her hands. "She is not a child. She is an adult. And without her authorization, no withdrawal is permitted." Denise leaned over the desk like she could force an answer by proximity. "Then authorize me. I need to speak to whoever can override her access." Donna shook her head. She raised one finger and clicked a key on her keyboard. The screen glowed blue and white in the reflection on her glasses. According to our records, she secured 2-factor authentication and privacy restrictions at midnight. She is the only authorized user. Michael finally found his voice. "There must be some mistake. I am her father. I gave permission for this account." Donna turned the monitor toward them. The signature line came up. "Custodial access ends automatically at the moment the minor turns 18. It ended last night at 12:00 a.m. No parental access remains." Denise opened her mouth, but nothing came out. It was like someone had unplugged her voice. The bank was quiet enough that every word carried across the lobby. Phones stopped tapping. Pens stopped scratching. And in the silence, I stepped forward. Donna looked up and smiled because she had been expecting me. "Good morning, Avery. Right on time." The movement in the lobby rippled like a breath. Denise spun around, her face flushed with color that did not flatter her. "You." She hissed the word like I had committed a crime. I walked to the chair beside her and set a neat folder on the desk. Inside the folder were printed statements, screenshots, and a time-stamped image of the attempted transfer at 11:58 p.m. I did not slide them toward her. I slid them toward Donna. Before we let this continue, I said I would like these included in the record. Donna lifted the papers calmly and examined the screenshot of the attempted transfer. "This is helpful," she said. "We have a record of that attempt in our system as well." The audience in the lobby grew. No one spoke, no one interfered. But they were listening, and we all knew it. Denise broke. She pointed at me with a shaking hand. "She stole that money. I gave her a home. I fed her. She owes us." Donna did not even look up from the paper. "Ma'am, the funds are legally and exclusively hers. The attempted withdrawal from your home address failed because authorization was removed at midnight." Denise turned to Michael for backup. "Say something. Tell her we need it." The embarrassment on his face was sharp. He stared at the floor because he understood the truth and hated it. His voice came out thin. "She is 18. We cannot force it." Denise's mouth opened again, but her argument collapsed. The people watching were not family friends who would defend her. They were strangers faced with facts. I leaned forward, calm as ice. "I am requesting 2 things. First, printed confirmation naming me as full owner and sole signatory of both accounts. Second, a printed login history showing attempts from their household last night." Donna nodded. "Absolutely." She typed a request into the system. The printer near the teller line started humming. The sound echoed louder than it should have. Denise stared in horror. She was not simply losing, she was losing publicly. When the papers printed, Donna handed them directly to me, not to Denise, not to Michael. My name, Avery Lane, appeared in clean black ink above every signature line. I gathered the papers and placed them carefully into my folder, labeled receipts. The same folder I had carried out of the house. I stood. We are done. But Denise was not. She lunged in front of the counter, speaking louder than ever, desperate to reclaim control. You embarrassed us. You will ruin us. What will people say? For a second, I wondered if she even heard herself. Her panic was not about love or concern. It was about image, the thing she worshipped. I lifted my chin. People will say the truth. They will say I turned 18 and took back what was mine. Donna stood as well, positioning herself beside me. That is correct. The funds are fully hers. Please leave the branch if you have no other business. Denise froze. The command hit her pride with surgical precision. For the first time in my life, she had no comeback, no insult, no command, nothing. She was silent. Michael placed a shaky hand on her arm and whispered enough. They walked out through the same glass doors they had entered, only now they looked smaller, almost fragile. The lobby stayed quiet until the doors closed. Then people went back to their tasks, but not before a few of them gave me that look strangers give, when they know they witnessed justice without shouting. Donna turned to me. You handled that with dignity. I exhaled slowly. Thank you. She offered a real smile. It is good to see someone stand up for herself the right way. I left the bank with the folder tucked beneath my arm, the winter air cool against my face. There was no victory parade, no dramatic music, no clap of thunder, just truth, clean and final. This is revenge through truth. Comment, truth. Freedom did not feel like fireworks or loud music. It felt like the quiet hum of the elevator in Merill Tower at Ohio State University, the soft ping as the doors opened to a narrow hallway, the smell of microwaved ramen drifting from someone's room. I carried my backpack and the same flowered tin that had held my passbook. The elevator doors closed behind me, and for the first time in my life, I realized no one could take anything from me without my consent. My dorm room was small. 2 beds, 2 desks, 2 closets. My roommate, a girl named Lila from Dayton, looked up from her laptop and smiled with a warmth that surprised me. She asked if I needed help unpacking. I almost cried at the simple kindness, because I had grown used to living in a home where every gesture came with a price. I set my folder labeled receipts on my desk like a trophy. In the first week, I applied for the IT help desk job on campus. The manager looked at my resume and hired me the same day. $15 an hour felt like a miracle. The work was simple passwords, printer errors, anxious freshmen who thought they broke their laptops. I solved problems with patience and precision. Every shift felt like proof I deserved my life. I kept a spreadsheet of every dollar. Tuition was covered by my scholarship. Housing was paid. Food was cheap because I learned to stretch a grocery list like an art form. Instant noodles, frozen vegetables, clearance bread, peanut butter. I opened an adult checking account and a high-yield savings account with the money Donna helped me transfer. Watching the balance sit safely under my name was more satisfying than any birthday party could ever be. Then came the thought about the gas charge. Brandon had taken the $200 that Denise called gas money and pulled it from the pool they claimed was my birthday fund. I still had the digital trail. It was petty small in the grand scheme, but justice often lived in the small places. I submitted a request through the bank app attaching the statement that labeled the transaction and the screenshot of Denise texting Brandon drive safe baby I took from her fund. The chargeback was approved in 2 days. $200 returned quietly to my account. I imagined Brandon swiping his card at a pump and watching it decline while the machine beeped. No screaming, no revenge speech, just consequences. That was my favorite kind of justice. One afternoon at work, I printed a new phone plan statement. My father's name was the primary account holder. Denise and Brandon shared secondary lines. When I lived at home, Denise demanded the password so she could pay bills online and see who was calling who. Now I changed that password. When the prompt asked if I wanted to remove any authorized users, I clicked yes. Her line vanished from the account like it never existed. She would discover it the next billing cycle in panic. Again, no argument, no yelling, just silence. The days became a rhythm. Morning classes, afternoon work, evening study sessions in the library. Chloe visited every weekend. We ate cheap pizza and laughed on the quad. I slept through the night for the first time in years because there was no shouting through the walls, no slamming doors, no threats about money. Every morning I woke with the knowledge that my life finally belonged to me. Then the first email came. The subject line read, "You embarrassed us." Denise wrote 3 paragraphs accusing me of betrayal, ingratitude, disrespect, humiliation. She said people were asking questions. She said I ruined the family name. She demanded I come home and fix it. I clicked block. She switched email accounts and tried again. Block. She used Michael's account. Block. The university had a privacy hold system for students with toxic family situations. I submitted a form showed the documents Donna printed, and within an hour my record was locked. No one could call me through the school. No one could request my location. No one could pretend there was an emergency. I was a ghost where I wanted to be invisible. A week later, Chloe handed me a letter. No return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. Denise had written it in angry, slanted ink, demanding I repay the money she spent on me since childhood. She listed dentist appointments, school clothes, and the cost of feeding me. She said I needed to do the right thing. I did not reply. I did something better. I placed the letter in my receipts folder. Evidence for later if they ever tried anything legal. The more silent I became, the louder they became. Another email arrived from Michael. He begged me to call, said Denise was losing sleep, said I was cruel. He did not ask if I was safe or happy. He asked what people would think. That was always the core of our home image over humanity. I blocked him too. My phone stayed quiet. I did not miss them. I missed the idea of a mother and father, but not the people themselves. They were strangers now. Strangers who once controlled my life and now had no power over a single hour of it. On weekends, I walked along the Olentangy River Trail with Lila and Chloe. Leaves turned red and gold around us. The entire world looked like a clean slate. I learned how to cook simple meals. I learned how to fix a leaky faucet in our dorm bathroom. I learned that quiet was a beautiful thing. Near the end of the semester, I sat in the cafeteria with a stack of textbooks. I checked my bank app the way people check social media. Every balance was untouched, secure mine. My life felt steady. I thought about Nana Ruth. She had been right. Respect is earned. I earned mine by stepping away. I did not need to scream. I did not need revenge that looked like fire. I needed revenge that looked like a balanced account and a locked door. Standing up for yourself did not have to be loud. Sometimes it was a click of a button and a life rebuilt in silence. If you support standing up for yourself. Right Stand Thanksgiving arrived quietly without decorations, without a table crowded with plates, without anyone shouting about turkey being too dry or mashed potatoes being too salty. I sat alone in the mostly empty dorm cafeteria with a plastic tray and a turkey sandwich that tasted like refrigerator air. Lila had gone home to Dayton. Chloe was visiting her grandparents. The building echoed with silence. I stared at the sandwich, took a small bite, and felt an unexpected ache in my chest. Not for Denise or Michael or Brandon, but for the version of myself who used to hope they would remember a holiday or a birthday or anything that mattered to me. I almost let the sadness swallow me, but then I opened my laptop. The screen glowed with lines of code for my final project. It felt steady, logical, honest. Code has no favorites, no humiliation, no insults. If you write it correctly, it works. I finished the last function and hit run. The program compiled perfectly. A small box popped up at the bottom of the screen. Dean's List status confirmed. I stared at the notification for a long time. The cafeteria was silent, but I felt a feeling rise in me that was louder than any holiday dinner. I had done it without them. Because they left me no choice. I took a picture of the screen and saved it in my receipts folder, not to show anyone, just to remind myself that I had proof of my own worth. The next day, my phone rang from an unknown number. I almost ignored it. Something inside me told me to answer. A woman's voice came through the speaker. She said she was calling from Riverside Hospital. There was a family emergency and my parents needed me. My heart thudded not with fear, but with old reflexes. I asked what happened. The woman hesitated. She said my mother had collapsed. She said they needed me to confirm insurance information. She asked for my full name, birth date, and social security number. That was when a thin line of suspicion cut through the panic. Hospitals do not ask for full identity on initial calls. They verify with partial numbers. They never request the full set. I asked her to confirm the hospital address. She fumbled. I asked which doctor was treating my mother. Silence. I hung up. I searched Riverside Hospital and called the main line. When the receptionist answered, she confirmed there was no patient under Denise's name, no emergency, no collapse, nothing. The call had been a lie, a fake emergency meant to scare me, to manipulate me into giving them information so they could access my accounts or open new credit lines. The ache that surfaced earlier did not return. It burned away, replaced by something colder and stronger. I opened my laptop and went to the 3 main credit bureaus, Experian, Equifax, TransUnion. One by one, I applied for a full credit freeze. It was simple. I created a PIN, locked every file, and disabled credit inquiries. If Denise tried to open a card or loan under my name, the system would reject it immediately. I did not shout. I did not warn her. I just closed the door on every financial path she could abuse. When the last freeze confirmation came through, I leaned back in my chair and exhaled. My life was my own. They could no longer reach for it. The loneliness that washed over me at the cafeteria table began to fade. Maybe family is not blood. Maybe family is the people who do not need to steal from you to feel important. I walked outside. The campus was quiet under a thin layer of snow. I watched students drag suitcases toward cars. Some hugged their parents. Some waved goodbye. I breathed in the cold and realized I was still standing, still moving forward, still building something that belonged to me. Later that evening, Chloe sent a picture of her grandparents' living room, a bright fire, 2 dogs on the couch plates of pie, and a note that said, "Save a slice for Avery." I smiled, not the small smile I used to fake at home, but a real one that warmed my chest. I heated a cup of instant coffee and sat at my desk. I opened my bank app and saw every account untouched, unmoved, secure. My balance had not changed. My world had not collapsed. The fake emergency had not worked. Part of growing up is learning that not every cry for help is honest. Sometimes people who hurt you will pretend to be victims because they know pity works like a key. I removed that key. No one was getting in. Weeks passed. Finals came and went. I aced my computer science exam. I walked across the oval with music in my headphones and felt something I had never felt at home: peace. There were still hard moments, nights when memories tried to pull me backward, moments when I imagined what would have happened if my family had been different. But every time those thoughts appeared, I reminded myself that strength is not loud. Sometimes strength is a quiet apartment, a bank balance under your own name, and the knowledge that no one can touch it without your permission. One night, I stood outside Morill Tower, looking up at the windows glowing against the dark sky. I thought about how close I had come to becoming someone who accepted silence as normal, someone who believed that money and love were bargaining chips. But I had broken that cycle. I was not a ghost. I was not invisible. I had receipts. The kind that could stand up in front of any bank, any judge, any family member who tried to lie again. Revenge had shifted inside me. At first, it was fire. Now, it was something calmer, deeper, and far more permanent. It was self-respect. It was the ability to wake up without dread. It was the right to say no, the right to leave, the right to build a life where I was not the punchline to someone else's control. Standing in the cold air, I whispered thank you to Nana Ruth. Not for the money, though it saved me, for the belief she had in me when no one else did. That belief grew into my backbone. That backbone carried me out of a house that never felt like home. Justice did not have to be loud to be real. It just had to be true. Choose truth and closure. Say Closure Winter in Columbus had a way of making everything feel sharper, cleaner, honest. Snow covered the sidewalks in thin sheets, and our small apartment smelled like fresh coffee and laundry soap. Chloe was studying on the couch. Highlighters scattered everywhere when a hard knock rattled the door. Not a polite knock, but a demand. I froze. Chloe looked up, eyebrows raised. She whispered, "Do not open it." Another knock louder, followed by a voice I knew too well. "Avery, open this door right now. Denise." The sound pulled every muscle in my body tight. Chloe stood and went to the window. Her eyes widened. They brought Brandon. I walked to the door and opened it a few inches. Denise pushed past me, wrapped in a coat too thin for the cold. Brandon followed, pale, unshaven eyes darting around like a trapped animal. He shut the door behind him and leaned against it. "We need to talk." He spoke like a demand. I crossed my arms. "You do not live here. You do not get to walk in." Denise forced a smile that did not reach her eyes. "We just want a conversation." That was a lie. They wanted something else. Her voice wavered. "Your father is furious. People are asking questions. They are saying we cannot control our own daughter. What will people say?" I gave a small laugh. That line had lost all power over me. Chloe stayed on the couch, listening but silent like backup support. Brandon stepped forward. He looked nothing like the arrogant boy who once smirked while calling me poor. His hoodie was stained, his hair greasy, his eyes red. "I lost my car. They took it. 3 missed payments. I need money to get it back. Just a little. You have plenty." Denise nodded quickly, desperate. "You have more than you need. We know you took the charge back. You embarrassed us at the bank. You have to fix this." That was the moment the cold in my chest turned into something steady, strong. I walked to my desk and opened the drawer. I pulled out my folder labeled Receipts, the same folder that saved me before. I laid it on the kitchen table. Slowly, carefully, I opened it and removed a stack of papers, printed statements, screenshots, emails, and then I played the recording, the audio I had saved from the night she screamed in the kitchen. "You do not need that $7,500. Brandon needs it. Cancel your birthday." The words echoed in the apartment. Denise went still. Brandon's mouth hung open. Chloe looked up like she was watching a courtroom verdict. They did not know I had recorded it. Ohio is a one-party consent state. I am allowed to record conversations I am part of. Their faces drained of color. I did not raise my voice. I did not scream. I spoke with a calm I had never owned before. "Here are the statements showing you moved $200 of my birthday fund into Brandon's gas. Here is the attempted transfer you made the night before I turned 18. Here is the email where you told me I embarrassed you. Here is the audio where you canceled my birthday. Here are the texts where you told Brandon to enjoy the gas I paid for." Denise shook her head in denial, a tiny motion, like she could erase documented proof. "That was family business. You had no right to record us." I corrected her. "I had every right. You took money that did not belong to you. You lied. You manipulated. You tried to open debt in my name. Then you made a fake hospital emergency." She tried to speak. I lifted one hand. "No loans, no cosign. Not my problem." Brandon's face twisted into anger. "You are being dramatic. You have the money. Help me." He stepped closer, voice cracking. "I am your brother. I owe you nothing." My voice did not shake. Brandon slammed his fist into the wall by the table. A sharp crack filled the room and a small crescent broke through the drywall. Chloe jumped. Denise gasped. I stared at the hole. It was tiny, repairable. A perfect metaphor. You think breaking things gets you what you want. It does not. Denise's panic turned to begging. Please, Avery, just a loan. Just until he gets another job. People are talking. They are asking how we raised such a cold child. I leaned forward. Cold. I said the word back to her. Was it cold when you threw my birthday candles in the trash? Was it cold when you took my money? Was it cold when you told Chloe she was not allowed in our house? Or when you said I was ungrateful? Or when you tried to scare me with a fake emergency? Denise covered her face with her hands, not out of guilt, out of shame, the kind you feel when the world sees who you really are. I gathered the papers back into my folder, slow and precise. This was not revenge through fury. This was revenge through truth. Brandon leaned forward again, desperate, wild. Keep your receipts, he spat. You think this makes you better. You think you are the hero. He did not understand. I did not need to be the hero. I only needed to be done. I pointed to the door. Leave. Denise grabbed Brandon's sleeve. Please, Avery, think about family. Think about love. There was no love in our house. There was control. There was manipulation. There was humiliation. But no love. I opened the door. Brandon stared at me, breathing hard, his fist still red from the punch. He wanted me to cave. He wanted me to be the version of myself he could control. When he realized I would not, the anger on his face collapsed. It looked like a building falling in slow motion. They stepped into the hallway. I closed the door. Then I locked it. The click sounded like finality. Chloe came to my side. Her voice was soft but sure. You did the right thing. I exhaled, not shaking, not afraid, just free. Reclaiming respect without hate is possible. It looks like a closed door in a quiet apartment and a folder full of truth. Is reclaiming respect without hate possible type respect? The days that followed felt like someone had finally opened a window in a room that had been sealed too long. Cold air moved through my life, crisp and honest. I no longer wondered what Denise or Brandon were plotting. I no longer checked my phone in fear of a new scheme. Silence. The same silence that once felt like abandonment now felt like protection. By January, the consequences began to find them, not because I chased them, but because actions eventually return home. Brandon's car was the first. I heard about it through a girl from high school who messaged Chloe. She sent a picture taken from across a parking lot. A repossession truck sat beside his Honda. The car had a bright yellow sticker on the window, and Brandon stood nearby, looking small and furious. They towed it because he missed 3 payments. His bank did not care about excuses. They cared about numbers. He had none. Justice rarely arrives like thunder. Sometimes it looks like a tow truck. Denise tried to hide it. She pretended online that everything was normal, that life was perfect. But Ohio suburbs talk. People at church whispered. Neighbors compared notes. Someone mentioned the scene at the bank. Someone else mentioned the credit freeze. A small rumor grew into a story that even she could not rewrite. The woman who once bragged about control now had none. There were late fees on her utilities, penalties on her credit card, a canceled phone line she could not reactivate because my father finally learned how to handle the account himself. These were not revenge fireworks. These were the quiet ripples of cause and effect. In February, I received an email from Columbus Tech Labs inviting me for an interview. They needed an intern for $22 an hour. I brought my portfolio, my coding projects, and my transcript. The manager looked through everything and said, "We want you." No hesitation, no question, just yes. I sat outside the building afterward, staring at the skyline of Columbus. The sun reflected off glass towers, and the wind carried the scent of snow. I had a job, a real job, something I earned with no help from the people who tried to stop me. Later that evening, my scholarship advisor emailed me. A donor added a $2,000 top-up for students on the dean's list. My hands shook a little when I read it. The universe does not always shout. Sometimes it whispers you are on the right path. That night, I walked to a small grocery store near campus. I bought a bouquet of white flowers. When I returned to my dorm, I opened my bank app and transferred $100 to the Nana Ruth Memorial Scholarship Fund. It was not required. No one asked. It was just the right thing. She gave me freedom. I wanted someone else to feel it too. Spring melted the snow and the sidewalks filled with students again. Classes grew harder but not frightening. Work was steady. My life fit together like a puzzle where the pieces finally belonged. One quiet afternoon, I sat at the kitchen table of our apartment with Chloe. The sun came through the blinds in long, bright lines. I noticed the crack Brandon had made in the wall, a small crescent of broken drywall, a reminder of the life I used to live. I bought a small tub of spackle and a putty knife. Chloe turned on music while I patched the wall. It took less than 10 minutes. Smooth strokes, careful edges, and the crack vanished. I stood back and looked at the clean surface. Some cracks are fixable. That hole in the wall was not the only thing that healed. I learned how to trust my own choices, how to believe silence can be strength, how to walk through a grocery store and know every dollar I spent was mine. One evening, I walked along Alum Creek. The water moved slow and dark under the bridge. Trees rustled with new leaves. Families walked dogs. Students jogged past with earbuds and bright jackets. The world felt alive in a way my childhood home never did. There is a special kind of peace that comes after you stop trying to earn love from the wrong people. It is like laying down a weight you carried for years without knowing. I did not hate Denise or Brandon or Michael. Hate would keep me tied to them. I chose something quieter, something cleaner. I chose to move on. My revenge was not loud, it was not dramatic. It was a bank account in my name, a dorm room with my books, a car I would buy someday with my own money, a future they could not touch. Sometimes justice looks like a courtroom, sometimes it looks like handcuffs, and sometimes it looks like a girl walking along a river with the wind in her hair and no fear in her chest. They lost control. I gained myself. That was the trade. That was the poetic justice. I think about Nana Ruth often. Her kindness was small and steady. Quiet justice lived in her more than anyone I knew. I imagine she would smile if she could see me now. A student, a programmer, a girl who walked away and did not look back. If you believe in quiet justice, silent revenge, emotional resilience, dignity over money and revenge through truth, drop a comment. Share your lesson in betrayal, your path to standing up for yourself and finding truth and closure while reclaiming respect. I am reading.